Now the only other thing that we need to well, two more things. Present values of mixed streams. Say you have cash flows of $100 the first year, $200 the next 2 years, and $400 the third year. And we're going to place those, or we have an investment that will earn our required rate of return is 10%, and we want to know the present value of those. Now for mixed streams, present values of mixed streams, we do not use the 5 time value of money buttons. We use a button above the interest rate button, the CF or cash flow button. So we hit CF, and it shows CF0. So how much do we have now to put in the account, or how much are we going to pay? We will use this later on when we calculate NPV and IRR, but for projects. But we're not going to use it right now, so we will leave it 0. And the buttons we're going to use enter and the down arrow to enter in our numbers. The BA2 Plus works similarly to a spreadsheet, in that as you put in the numbers in the cells, you can toggle back and see what you've entered. So our first cash flow we said was $100. So we hit 100 and then enter and then the down button. Now F01 means frequency. The first, how many times does the cash flow occur in a row? Okay. Now in this example, we had 100 the first year, $200 for years 2 and 3, and $400 for year 4. So the $100 only happens once, so we just leave that at 1. Arrow down to cash flow 2, or CO2. Now again, this one, it was $200, so we're going to have $200 for years 2 and 3. So we hit 200, enter, hit the down arrow, and then frequency, since that 200 happens 2 years in a row, we hit 2, enter. And so that takes care of cash flows for year 2 and 3. Then we hit down arrow again and enter our last cash flow of 400, enter, and there we've got all our cash flows. We can toggle back up by hitting the up arrow to see we don't have anything in the first one. Again, we will leave that 0 until we get to a later chapter. $100 for the first cash flow, and that happens once. $200 for the next cash flow, and that happens twice. And then $400 for the last cash flow, and that happens once. And if you keep going down, you'll see the other cash flows are 0. Okay. Now, to calculate the present value, we're going to use the NPV button, meaning net present value. Okay. You hit NPV and it says I equals. That's the interest rate that is used to compound these cash flows or discount these cash flows. So we'll say that was 10%. So 10, enter. And then we hit the down arrow and it says NPV equals. All right. And then we hit compute and it says the present value of that stream of cash flows is $679.67. Now, to calculate the future value of a mixed stream, you have to do it one at a time. All right. So I will not display that now. It's just basically if we had that $100, $200 for 2 years, and 400, we'd have to calculate each one individually to some time point in the future and then add them up. Okay. The only other thing I need to show you is, say if we're doing semi-annual compounding or quarterly compounding. In that case, instead of changing the periods per year, I would suggest just changing the number of periods in the interest rate. So we've got $100 we're going to put in for 2 years at 10% interest. Then we were going to, but it's compounded semi-annually, we're going to increase or double the number of periods by 2 and divide the interest rate by 2. All right, so instead of, so if it's in there for 2 years, instead of 2, we're going to put 4 because it's semi-annual compounding. So we put 4 in. The interest rate was 10% annually, and note that interest rates are always quoted in annual rates. But since it's semi-annual compounding, we're going to take 10% divided by 2, or 5, would be our interest rate. 100 is our present value. Again, we have 0 payment. Okay? And then we're going to compute future value to get an answer of 121.55. Now just a couple more things to show you. On the cash flow button for the cash mixed stream present value, for example, in order to get rid of what you have entered in there, you have to hit the second clear button, which says clear work, while you're in the cash flow. So first you have to hit cash flow, second clear work, and then after you do that, you can see everything is back to zero. Okay. One more thing with compounding that I almost forgot to mention was continuous compounding. Say, for example, we're put money in an account that compounds continuously, which is every microsecond. What we have to do, instead of using the time value of money buttons, is we have to use a button ln, which actually second ln. See, above that is e to the x. E is the base of the natural logarithm. And so in order to do continuous compounding, say we want $100 in an account for 2 years, continuously compounded at 7%. Alright, first thing you have to do is convert the 7% to a decimal. So you take 0.07, multiply it by the number of years, in this case 2. So times 2 equals 0.14. And then you hit second, and then e to the x, and it gives 1.1503. That is your future value interest factor that you then multiply, so times the deposit, $100. So you can see your money, your $100 in 2 years at 7% compounded continuously has grown to 115.03 rounding. Now say if you just wanted an effective rate at continuously compounding, say 7%, that's the nominal rate. What's the effective rate if you compound continuously? Just hit 0.07 second e to the x, and it gives you 1.0725. So we subtract 1. So the effective rate is 7.25%, 0.0725. So continuously compounded, that's what the effective rate would be.